Gangsta Granny, written by David Williams, illustrated by Tony Ross. Chapter 8. A small wig in a jar. Ben hid in the bushes outside Granny's bungalow. Whilst Mum and Dad were downstairs in the living room watching Strictly Stars Dancing on the TV, Ben had scaled down the drain pipe outside his bedroom window and cycled the 5 miles to Granny's. This alone was a sign of how curious Ben had become about his granny. He didn't like cycling. His parents were always encouraging him to get more exercise. They told him that being fit was absolutely necessary if you wanted to be a professional dancer. But since it didn't make much difference when you were lying under a sink, screwing in a new length of copper piping, Ben had never willingly taken any exercise. Until now. If Granny was really going out for the first time in 20 years, Ben had to know where. It might just hold the key to how she came to have a ton of diamonds in her biscuit tin. So he huffed and puffed along the canal towpath on his clunky old bike until he came to Grey Close. The only good thing was that, being November, instead of being drenched in sweat, Ben was only mildly moist. He had pedalled fast because he knew he didn't have that much time. Strictly Stars Dancing seemed to go on for hours, days even, but it had taken Ben half an hour to cycle over to Granny's, and as soon as the show was over, Mum would be calling him downstairs for his tea. Ben's parents loved all the dancing TV shows. Dancing on Ice Skates, So You Think You Might Be Able to Dance a Bit. But they were completely obsessed with Strictly Stars Dancing. They had recorded every single episode and had an unrivalled collection of Strictly memorabilia in the house, including a lime green thong once worn by Flavio Flavioli, framed with a photograph of him wearing it, a Strictly Stars Dancing real fake leather bookmark, some athlete's foot powder signed by Flavio's professional dance partner, the Austrian beauty Eva Bunce, his and hers official Strictly Stars Dancing leg warmers, a CD of songs nearly used on the show, a small wig in a jar that had been worn by the presenter, Sir Dirk Doddery, a life-size cardboard cutout of Flavio Flavioli that had some of Mum's lipstick smudged around the mouth, some earwax in a jar that belonged to a celebrity contestant, the politician Dame Rachel Prejudice MP, a pair of tan tights that smelled of Ava Bunce, a doodle on a napkin of a man's bottom drawn by the nasty judge Craig Malteser Woodward, a set of official Strictly Stars Dancing egg cups, a half-full tube of Raxjex used by Flavio Flavioli, a Craig Malteser Woodward posable action figure, a Hawaiian hot pizza crust that had been left by Flavio, complete with a signed letter of authenticity from Ava Bunce. It was a Saturday, so after the show had finished, the family were going to be having cheesy beans and sausage. Neither Mum nor Dad could cook, but of all of the ready-made meals Ben's mum took out of the freezer, pricked with a fork and placed in the microwave for 3 minutes, this was his favourite. Ben was hungry and didn't want to miss it, which meant he needed to get back from Granny's house quickly. If it had been a Monday night, say, and they were having chicken tikka lasagna, or a Wednesday and doner kebab pizza, or a Sunday and Yorkshire pudding chow mein was on the menu, Ben wouldn't have been so bothered. The supermarket chain where Ben's dad worked liked to bring the cuisine of 2 countries together in one easy microwavable pack. By combining dishes from different countries, perhaps they would be able to bring peace to a deeply divided world. Or maybe not. Night was falling. As it was late November, it was rapidly growing colder and darker, and Ben was shivering in the bushes as he spied on his granny. Where can she be going? Thought Ben. She hardly ever goes out. He saw a shadow move in her bungalow. Then a face appeared at the window and Ben quickly shot out of view. The bushes rustled. Shh, thought Ben. Had the old lady seen him? After a few moments, the front door opened slowly, and out stepped a figure dressed entirely in black. A black jumper, black leggings, black gloves, black socks, probably even a black bra and knickers. A black balaclava disguised the face, But from the stoop, Ben knew it was Granny. She looked like someone from one of the covers of the book she loved reading. She straddled her mobility scooter and revved the engine. Where on earth was she going? And more importantly, why was she dressed like a ninja? Ben propped his bike against the bushes and got ready to tail his own grandmother, which was one thing he had never in a million years dreamed of doing. Like a spider scuttling around a bathroom trying not to be seen, Granny steered her scooter close to the walls. Ben followed on foot as quietly as possible. It wasn't too difficult to keep up, as the top speed of the mobility scooter was 4 miles per hour. Whirring across the road, she suddenly looked back as if she had heard something, and Ben dived behind a tree. He waited, holding his breath. Nothing. After a few moments, he poked his head around the trunk and saw that Granny had reached the end of the road. He continued his chase. Soon they were near the town's high street. It was all but deserted. As it was early evening, all the shops had shut for the day, and the pubs and restaurants had yet to open for the night. Granny stayed out of the glow of the street lights, swerved into doorways as she neared her destination. Ben gasped when he saw where she had parked. The jeweller's shop. Necklaces and rings and watches sparkled in the window. Ben couldn't believe his eyes as Granny took out a tin of cabbage soup from the scooter's basket. She glanced around theatrically, then pulled back her arm in readiness to smash the tin through the jeweller's shop window. "No!" shouted Ben. Granny dropped the tin. It crashed to the ground and cabbage soup oozed onto the pavement. "Ben!" hissed Granny. "What are you doing here?" Chapter 9. The Black Cat. Ben stared at his granny as she stood by the jeweller's shop, dressed all in black. "Ben?" she prompted. "What are you doing following me?" I... Ben was so shocked he couldn't form a sentence. "Well," she said, "whatever you're doing here, you'll have the cops on us in no time. We'd better get out of here. Quick, jump on." "But I can't." "Ben! We've got about 30 seconds before that CCTV camera comes on." She pointed to a camera screwed to the wall of an apartment block next to a row of shops. Ben jumped on the back of her mobility scooter. "You know when the CCTV cameras come on?" he asked. "Oh," said Granny, "you'd be surprised by what I know." Ben looked at her back as she drove. He'd just seen her preparing to rob a jeweller's shop. How could he be more surprised? Clearly there was a lot more to his granny than he had ever known. "Hold on," said Granny. "I'm going full throttle." She violently twisted the handle of the scooter to absolutely no effect that Ben could feel. They hummed off into the dark, going about 3 miles per hour with the increased weight. "The Black Cat?" repeated Ben. They were finally back sitting in Granny's living room. She had made a pot of tea and laid out some chocolate biscuits. "Yes, that's what they call me," replied Granny. "I was the most wanted jewel thief in the world." Ben's head was exploding with a million questions. Why? Where? Who? What? When? It was impossible to know what to ask first. "No one else knows except you, Ben," continued Granny. "Even your granddad went to his grave not knowing. Can you keep a secret? You have to swear not to tell a soul." "But..." Granny's face looked fierce for a moment. Her eyes narrowed and darkened like a snake about to bite. "You have to swear," the old lady said with an intensity Ben had never witnessed before. "Us criminals take our oaths very seriously. Very seriously indeed." Ben gulped, a little scared. "I swear not to tell anyone." "Not even your mother and father?" barked Granny, nearly spitting out her false teeth in the process. "I said I swear not to tell anyone," barked back Ben. Ben had been learning about Venn diagrams in school recently. As he had sworn not to tell anyone, and let's say that anyone is set A, and then mum and dad obviously included in set A and are of course a subset of it, so there was really no need for Granny to ask Ben to swear a second time. Take a look at this handy diagram. But Ben didn't think his granny would be interested in Venn diagrams right now. Since she was still staring at him with those scary eyes, he sighed and said, "All right, I swear not to tell Mum and Dad." "Good boy," said Granny as her hearing aid began to whistle. On one condition," ventured Ben. "What's that?" said Granny, seeming a little startled by his nerve. "You have to tell me everything." Thank you for listening to chapters 8 and 9. Join us on Friday for chapter 10. I hope you enjoyed chapters 8 and 9. Join us again next time for chapter 10.